Some people say that in China, the end of entrepreneurship is debt, and the end of being a boss is being a debt defaulter. This statement truly hits the mark. The term debt defaulter here refers to a person who has been subject to enforcement for breach of trust. I'm a debt defaulter. Back in 2019, I invested in a beverage company in Changchun, putting all my eggs in one basket. I had transferred ownership of my clothing store, believing this business would succeed. Perhaps it was a pandemic, coupled with my lack of understanding, that led to a total loss. Now, I'm heavily in debt. I think there are two types of debt defaulters: those who can pay but choose not to, and those who genuinely cannot afford to. When you're millions deep in debt, your first priority is simply to survive. Everything else becomes secondary. I hope to eventually rid myself of this label and live a dignified life, providing a peaceful environment for my family.
Let
me show you my past successes. Just last year, I had assets worth tens of millions, including 2 companies, a factory, 2 houses, and 2 cars. However, after 3 years of the pandemic and falling victim to fraud costing me millions, I ended up losing everything, and now I'm buried in debt. I've lost my houses, cars, and even my dignity, with no monetary value, is gone too. Now, I'm completely penniless. I'm constantly trying to adjust my state of mind. It's laughable, but I only have a few tens of yuan left in my pocket. Many people ask me what I'll do next: work to pay off debts or continue to start businesses. I'd say if I rely on working, I'll never have a chance to turn my life around again. Some also ask me if there's still a chance for success in this materialistic society without resources, connections, and startup capital. I believe what we're really lacking is just an opportunity. We must believe in ourselves. I once had assets worth billions, living a glamorous life with luxury cars and mansions. Now approaching 60, I've lost everything and I'm $1 billion in debt. I am now a debt defaulter with nothing left. I've resented why fate has been so cruel to me, and I've regretted my greed for wanting to go public. Now my gray hair serves as a painful reminder of those difficult times. The 3-year pandemic has technically ended, and although the Chinese government is making efforts to erase memories of it, turning the term pandemic into a sensitive word on Chinese social media, the impact it has on the Chinese citizens continues, both psychologically and economically. Business bankruptcies, entrepreneurial failures, unemployment, and salary reductions have been ongoing topics in recent years. Many former business owners have accumulated debts and been forced into becoming debt defaulters, while numerous individuals have been blacklisted for credit breaches due to job losses and interrupted mortgage payments. Data shows that in the past 5 years, China's personal debt has surged by 50%. Those branded as debt defaulters now number over 8.5 million, a near 50% increase from 5.7 million at the beginning of 2020. These debtors, who have failed to meet the repayment schedules for home or business loans, mostly range in age from 18 to 59 and constitute 1% of China's workforce. It might be hard to believe, but this greasy-looking middle-aged man you're looking at has actually not turned 40 yet. I was once a small business owner worth tens of millions with my own house, car, business, and several million in savings. But now, I can't even afford a bowl of noodles that cost 8 yuan. Every day, I deal with an overwhelming number of messages and calls for repayment, even with quite a bit of misunderstanding and abuse. This former business owner started a factory at 19 and later ventured into the restaurant and KTV chain businesses. By the age of 29, he had accumulated tens of millions in assets. However, now at 39, he finds himself burdened with a debt of 7.6 million yuan, without a home, and branded as a debt defaulter. The stringent lockdown policies during the pandemic affected nearly all urban areas in China. Just before the CCP's 20th National Congress in 2022, at least 74 cities, accounting for a population of 313 million, were subjected to either complete or partial lockdowns. The lockdown measures, which included the shutdown of factories and mandatory home quarantines, echoed tactics reminiscent of the Cultural Revolution. These policies have pushed many small business owners and citizens in China to the brink of economic despair. A 41-year-old small business owner, Mr. Zheng, from Nanning, Guangxi, once believed that his appliance manufacturing business would always run smoothly. However, 3 years of pandemic lockdowns shattered his dreams. For a while, he was overwhelmed with debt, fretting daily over how to cover the necessary expenses to keep his factory running, leading to over a month of sleepless nights. Now he has essentially shut down his business, heading the factory over to others. According to him, lockdowns led many small business owners like himself to bankruptcy. As we have frequently reported, China's small and medium-sized enterprises have experienced a significant number of closures due to the lockdowns, with the food industry suffering especially severe impacts. According to Chinese media, around 460,000 businesses closed in 2020, resulting in 780 million people incurring debt. In the first 11 months of 2021, approximately 4.37 million SMEs permanently shut down. The pandemic has undoubtedly changed many people's lives. However, China's economic recovery post-pandemic last year was less robust than expected, making it even more challenging for small and medium-sized enterprises. Many of these businesses managed to survive 3 years of pandemic conditions only to collapse under reduced consumer spending. Moreover, many individuals entered entrepreneurship with great aspirations post-pandemic, only to face the tough reality that new business owners have a higher risk of failure.
This is our store, which has lost 500,000 yuan in 3 months and is officially closing today. We've already started moving out. From its opening on September 28, 2023 to today, February 29th, only lasted 5 months, which is really a shame. I chose not to sell it because I don't want anyone else to repeat my mistakes. Having experienced a significant loss, I strongly advise those new to the restaurant business to proceed with caution. Excellent food doesn't always guarantee business success. Don't be misled by the apparent success of others, otherwise you only see what they want you to see. After a year of struggles, I am burdened with heavy debts, and there's no glamorous exit, just a painful and awkward departure. What should one do after such a business failure?
Today is the 21st day since my small restaurant opened, and not a single customer. My wife was against me entering the food business, but I didn't listen to her, and this is the result. This young man from Shandong invested over 100,000 yuan in March this year to open a beef noodle shop. In the beginning, his daily turnover averaged over 1,000 yuan, but it quickly came to a halt. With an annual rent of 70,000 yuan for the shop, he is unsure whether to keep it going. In the comments section, many in the food industry advise him to cut his losses, as they have experienced similar challenges. The longer you stay in, the more you stand to lose. Others noted that they have been in the food business for over 10 years, and this year has been the toughest yet. This is a street-level commercial space under a large office building, with about 10 cafes, milk tea shops, and restaurants. Let's take a look at their business status. The first one is likely already closed. There's no one inside. The second, third, fourth, and fifth stores have the potential for closure of 50%. Last year, we did a report on Dog Brother, who deals in second-hand restaurant equipment. His business boomed due to many restaurants shutting down. This year, we're checking back to see how the food industry is doing and to gain more insights from him. The food market was somewhat grim in the first quarter of this year, with 460,000 restaurants going out of business, more than double the number from the same period last year. Dog Brother has felt this more deeply than anyone, as during the first quarter, he was overwhelmed with equipment from closed restaurants, peaking at 14 closures in one day. The entire company staff, plus an additional 20 temporary workers, had to pitch in to manage this surge. Most of the restaurants that closed were new, indicating a very high failure rate for newcomers in the industry. It's becoming clear that encouraging inexperienced individuals to enter the food business might no longer be wise, as it has turned into a highly risky venture. Despite its warnings, the ones who are least likely to heed Dog Brother's advice are the inexperienced newcomers themselves. The Wall Street Journal recently reported that China's household debt has surged by 50% over the past 5 years, reaching approximately 11 trillion US dollars. Although this is lower than the $17.5 trillion in household debt in the United States, it is still significant for a country where resident incomes are much lower than those in the US. The primary component of this household debt is mortgages, which loom like a huge burden over many middle-aged individuals. Unemployment could lead them into a dire situation if they are unable to meet mortgage repayments.
40岁没工作
At 40 years old, I'm unemployed, have no savings, and owe the bank millions in mortgage debt. If you ask me what to do next, I don't know. I'm especially lost right now. With the downgrade in consumer spending, it's becoming increasingly difficult for the average person to make money. According to the gentleman, he was formerly a designer director at a top 100 real estate company, where he earned a decent income. However, in the past 2 years, as the real estate sector faced repeated crises, his income consistently declined. At the end of last month, he was notified by his company to proceed with resignation procedures. Even though some of his colleagues had already left, he knew it might happen to him too. He still felt bewildered when it finally did. 15 days after leaving his job, he posted a farewell message on his social media, even blocking his parents from seeing it to spare them the worry. Now, he's facing the harsh reality that despite having a top-notch architect certificate, finding work in design or real estate is tough. He's considering other career options. This man's story is quite common in China, where the real estate sector is facing challenges and other industries are fiercely competitive. Even for those who are still employed, their wages might be delayed or cut completely. As a result, there has been a surge in mortgage defaults since last year. When defaults happen, properties are put up for auction, causing substantial financial losses and landing the owners on a blacklist of debt defaulters.
My house has defaulted, and now it's being seized. In 2019, I bought it in Dongguan for over 2 million yuan, paying a 600,000 yuan down payment and taking out a mortgage of over 1.4 million yuan with monthly payments exceeding 8,000 yuan. Ironically, my initial loan interest rate was 5.8%, but I lost my income in April last year, forcing me into default. By then, I realized I still owed over 1.3 million. Over 3 years, I paid back over 300,000 yuan, of which more than 200,000 was just interest. 6 months after defaulting, the bank sued me, and the court issued its judgment. Not only was my house seized, but my bank accounts were frozen. Even my WeChat wallet wasn't spared, along with various penalties, legal fees, and litigation costs amounting to nearly 100,000 yuan. Now the court has notified me they are auctioning the house at a 30% discount for 1.4 million yuan. But with market conditions that poor, no one is willing to buy it. Even if it sells at this price, I still have nowhere to turn. I've lost my house, my down payment, and I still owe the bank tens of thousands of yuan. My losses are up to 800,000 to 900,000 yuan now.
Regarding the bank's actions, some professionals have expressed skepticism. Why should only the debtor bear the burden when a house defaults? Shouldn't the bank share some of the responsibility? They use the strictest risk control systems and the most professional assessment companies, who deem the property worth enough to mortgage for the loan. Now that there's no money to pay them back, they should take it back. Whether they manage to sell it or not, with or without profit, shouldn't the debt be considered settled anyway? Why is the owner still responsible after the auction if it's insufficient to cover the debt? And why charge all these additional fees from penalty interest, litigation fees, to legal fees? And then they proceed to seize other properties under the owner's name, and if that's still not enough, they also get labeled as debt defaulters. Restrictions are imposed that affect their children's education and their own ability to engage in high-value consumption. I believe if a loan cannot be repaid, banks and property owners should share the debt risk proportionally, rather than having people lose their down payments and become debt defaulters. In fact, in China, whether it's corporate law or bankruptcy law, creditors are always prioritized. These creditors are usually powerful state institutions like banks, while entrepreneurs or individuals are left in dire straits, leading to an increasing number of debt defaulters. Western countries have personal bankruptcy laws as well as corporate bankruptcy laws. Conversely, China introduced the enterprise bankruptcy law trial implementation all the way back in 1986, but to date, it has not implemented a personal bankruptcy system. China believes that allowing personal bankruptcy would allow debt defaulters to escape their debts. Experts in China indicate that while there is a corporate bankruptcy law to help struggling enterprises restructure, there are no policies to save entrepreneurs. Once entrepreneurs find themselves in a debt crisis, they have no choice but to flee or even resort to extreme measures. This failed entrepreneur also believes that once someone fails in business and becomes a debt defaulter, facing this many restrictions, how can they possibly earn money to repay their debts? As failed entrepreneurs, we're restricted from high-value consumption. So you think we take airplanes just to gaze at clouds for a few hours, right? Airplanes, high-speed trains, they're all just means for us to save time and improve efficiency in our work. We've already failed in our entrepreneurial ventures. Now we're surrounded and blocked at every turn. Where else can we find opportunities to earn money? You tighten the noose around our necks. If you don't give us the time and opportunity to earn money, how can we have the money to pay back our debts? Some believe that if they're sure to become a debt defaulter, if their business fails, who would dare to invest in ventures again? After all, entrepreneurship is inherently risky. Brandishing a one-size-fits-all label of debt defaulters on failed entrepreneurs and surrounding them with various restrictions begs the question, who would dare to start a business under such circumstances? It's akin to a scenario where someone has been domestically abusing their spouse and then suddenly claims they will stop and live peacefully. Would she believe it? This is why we have now introduced many incentive policies to encourage personal entrepreneurship. Why are people still hesitant? I believe it's because our policies are not thoroughly comprehensive. The strict credit and borrowing height systems have not substantially changed. Once you fail in entrepreneurship, you're labeled a debt defaulter. Businesses that don't need money have banks knocking on their doors to offer loans, yet those who are truly in need can't get a dime, leading to a lot of loan withdrawals and business closures. Now, even though we are calling for more entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurs are like startled birds, scared to take the plunge. This approach only serves to kick someone when they are down, driving debtors to desperation without offering a way out, making economic growth extremely challenging. An assistant researcher, Wang Guochen, at the China Economic Research Institute, states that Beijing's system should be unified, treating all individuals with credit imperfections equally. However, in enforcement, people are quickly added to the blacklist for minor repayment issues. In contrast, state-owned enterprises or high-ranking officials are less likely to be blacklisted. They often only face repercussions after their sentences are confirmed or they have been expelled from the party or their official position. He believes that to fundamentally address the personal debt issue in China, the primary step must involve resolving the real estate debt problem. This is because real estate affects a wide range of industries, and without addressing it, related manufacturing industries, including steel, cement, and downstream sectors like decorations, aluminum windows, and furniture, will not improve. From a financial perspective, local government land finance also suffers significant declines in land sale revenues following poor real estate performance. Without addressing real estate issues, China will only become increasingly troubled, including employment for its citizens. Wang Guochen explains that if personal debt continues to rise, the real estate market will continue to collapse. After the new real estate policies of last August and September, which relaxed restrictions even in fourth-tier cities, the real estate market remained depressed because people lacked the money to buy homes. In addition, as personal debt increases, consumer spending will continue to tighten. Even with initiatives like home appliance and car trade-in programs, the impact will be minimal because the public simply does not have the budget. Wang also states that we are now in what's called a liquidity trap, where people neither have the money nor the willingness to spend, and no amount of money printed by the authorities can stimulate consumption. This liquidity trap leads to a balance sheet recession, where people are unwilling to borrow money for investment or consumption, which then impacts the entire banking sector's revenue. Quality loans are becoming increasingly scarce, and banks are struggling to lend out their money. The money they can lend is often directed towards toxic assets, such as local government bonds or real estate bonds, due to policy requirements. Now, mainland China is experiencing what economist Keynes described as a paradox of thrift, where when people anticipate economic downturns, they cut back on spending. However, this reduction in consumption leads to decreased corporate revenues, which in turn leads to further layoffs, causing another round of reduced spending among the public and workers. This creates a vicious cycle. If it is not disrupted at its core, the result will be an escalating series of financial risks, and China's economy will not undergo fundamental changes, but will instead be trapped in an endless downward spiral.